Hey guys, George Mesa, Third Eye Edify podcast. And as I often am, with a guest as amazing as this, I am super excited to talk about some very time-sensitive things that just occurred. It's it's nothing new, but it's new, newish. It's old meets new and maybe even ancient, as we will see, talking about the connections between what the recent moon landing is called and how it relates to the mythological aspects of the Iliad and the Odyssey. Primarily the Odyssey, of course. And we'll get into all that. And who better to do this? The first person I thought of, and thankfully he was more than willing to do it. He is somebody that I think all of you know by now. And if not, after this interview, you will certainly know exactly why he's here. We just did an episode pretty recently about the Panama Canal, which I think the feedback was amazing. I got more than usual, by the way. I got all these people coming from different directions. Topher Gardner, anyone you can possibly name in this field coming at me like, man, where did that episode come from? All the secret sauce was flying. And please welcome him back to the show, Gabriel Slick Dissident. Thank you so much for being here. I think this is going to be something pretty special.
Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure to be here again. And as usual, we do these shows drawn, called. We're answering a compulsion that is very mystically embedded in us. And as like the last time, we get done with the weave, and I have all these things that I learned from our adventure
Right.
after the fact. And sure enough, it feels very much in stride that we went from the Panama Canal, the heart, aorta, ventricle, passageway portal of trade of all things that come and go from east to west.
Right.
And now we're up on the moon, almost dealing with some of the same ingredients of this mystical realm that we live in. So yeah, the connections between our last weave and this weave are so enriching. And so, yeah, I look forward to what we get out on the table tonight and the leftovers. It's all those leftovers after we have these conversations where I could look back and I'm like, these things just become a compendium of revelation. So, yeah, I'm stoked to continue the adventure.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Really, I'm so honored that you are in my world as much as I know that you are, and you're doing a service for everyone every time you step in front of the camera. I mean, it's rare, and that's the point of having this kind of show, is to bring people like you on. But you are you're a library. You know, I don't know how else to say it. It's far above and beyond most. It's above average, to say the very least. As again, most people that watch this show know you, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. I Unfortunately, it's not showing so well, but the image behind us was created by you, and I'll potentially just pull it up at its own thing soon. But that shot from the circular window, again, we get a circular window shot from these things. They never do anything different, right? And it looks a lot like something from the Crowleyan tarot that you've been looking at lately. So I think that's great. I mean, this tarot just never stops giving for you, right? You're constantly finding images in modern news, modern art that are they fit into all these little pieces. And it's easy to say, oh, yeah, sure, it's a circle, it's a blue. No, sometimes these images are exactly the same. The orientation of people holding certain things, and these are like press release photos, that come out on purpose. And it has a lot to do with what you were saying, the magic, the spell crafting that goes into it, the spell casting, as it were, right? The broadcasting of these things. And let me start with this, because when it's time for mythology, I I still don't have what I want knowledge wise. I always hear the references that you make, and every time you do, I say to myself, man, if I knew that, I would have said this at this and this when I did my own episode about something, right? But reaching for a metamorphosis, from Ovid is usually a good, quick little. It's got little bite-sized fragments of things that you'd want, right? And I'm just going to read a phrase from that to get us kind of started here, because there's a few sections that has Odysseus, and we're referencing the Odyssey, which is the second part, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Odysseus's journey back home, which I have a good feeling we can reference to perhaps the Bermuda Triangle. We'll get to that. There's a conversation there. He's in a circle with Ajax. In case you didn't know, that Ajax was actually the name of a mythological character, not just a cleaning powder that you clean your bathtub with. There is a little argument about who gets the armor of Achilles. And Ajax says about Odysseus, whose name is also Ulysses, by the way. Perhaps we can mention Ulysses Grant. Maybe he has a relationship in something here. We'll see. We'll see, maybe. That could be a whole nother episode. So they're having an argument about who should get this armor. And Ajax says about Ulysses, Odysseus, that let Ulysses, who maybe even could be NASA in this scenario, tell of his feats that no man has witnessed, only darkness. The darkness of space, where astronauts claim they never saw any stars, right? Pure black. The prize is great, I know, but somehow lessened because Ulysses claimed it. There is no honor. This almost makes me feel like we're describing how I feel about the show that we get from all space agencies. There is no honor in their deceit. It is only blackness. It is nobody, as Odysseus tries to fool a now blind Cyclops, as we will talk about in a minute. So all of these things seem to, it grabbed me right away, and it's right in one of the earlier parts, too, of something I was reading. So, tell of his feats that no man witnessed. It sounds biblical, but it's very much, you're not going to be an astronaut, and you didn't see what they saw. Until you do, maybe don't trust it. And I also want to leave this on the table to give you the room to go, that I'm putting together a little bit of a super episode with you and several other like-minded individuals about, we're not going to use that term that was floating around for the past, 10 years, but the fact that I don't think we're spinning and orbiting and flying all at once. And I think there's a lot of reasons to doubt NASA and I have the number, it doesn't matter. It's over $74 million a day budget. And we still don't get anything. What do we get? Get nothing. We get nothing. So I'm going to leave it there because there's plenty of other branches to dive into here, but perhaps we can quickly reference one small aspect of this, because you're very in tune with the public versus private, as I already am jumping around here, but let's just kind of get as much as we can before you go. Apollo, Artemis recently, and now Odysseus. Odysseus, in the news, they kept saying first time private space company has done it. They don't name it. They just say a private company. I'm assuming in that scenario, Apollo and Artemis were public versus private this time around. It's supposed to almost give it more of an allure, more of a glamour to it. You know what I mean? Like now with marshmallows for a breakfast cereal. That's how it feels to me. It seems so silly, So yeah, before we even tie in any mythological ideas, just give me your thoughts on this new, very exciting, decades in the making moon landing that we are supposed to believe just happened from NASA.
Absolutely. Great call. I'm glad you picked up on that private public. That is such a pivotal cornerstone of understanding correspondences in mythology and in law and ritual practice today. The difference between private and public is observed in mythology in profound ways. I think of it as the veil in the temple. When the veil was ripped, then there was a violation of what is private and what is public. And that happens in other stories. It's not just biblical. Other stories that unveiling happens, because once something is revealed, it can never go back in the private. It's like a one-way door. once it's in the public, its virginity is lost.
Great point, man.
And there's a
Once you close
lot
that
to that.
door, once you close that door behind you, that's it. You're out. And I want
Yes,
to throw
yes,
in that, and I have a double reference here for this concept that even in synagogues, I know that there still is a veil a lot of the times between the men and the women's side. They're in the same event of the same day. There's a veil inside of the synagogue. There's an actual veil separating that. And what I forgot to mention before, that they won't say the name. They were say, and we know who it is. It doesn't matter. They just kept saying private space company. First time a private space company, keeping the information from you as if they can't say the name, as if it's like Yod Veh Had.
yes.
You're right, like it's Yod Hey Vav Hey or something. I can't say it. Very strict
That's a
there.
great point. That is a great point. Okay, so the fact that Artemis and Apollo were the open facing side is very apropos in speaking in echoes of the epics.
Mm.
It is let me think, it's the Iliad that is the public facing. It is masculine, it's all battle, it's all bloodshed and war and gruesome details and strategy. It's all out in the public. And the
Right.
gods are known, and you know the gods by their effect. And so the fact that pestilence is inflicted by Apollo is consistent. It's so consistent. And his sister, his sister Artemis, is also correspondent to his number 6 orientation. And she represents the shadow of the number 6 personality type. He is an achiever. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He's a loyalist. And she is his shadow. She is fear and so she has much to do with the wilderness and the being in the instinct, recoiling, running and scurrying off into the wilderness.
Mm.
So he's out in the public facing side and she's on the private facing side. So they themselves represent a private and a public
Wow.
in a very well known dynamic. They say that over 50% of the world is number 6s. I think over the past decade, we've moved a great amount of the 6s have gone up to 9s, but
Hmm.
we'll set that aside. So yes, the in terms of the epics, it is the Iliad that is public, that is aggressive, that is masculine. And the Odyssey is the feminine counterpart. And that is that it is Odysseus is known as being incredibly cunning, incredibly crafty, and one of his superpowers is putting on a disguise. And right there, we see a master of knowing what is private, of holding his
Mhm.
tongue, keeping things on the down low, knowing what to say and what not to say, such as, my name is no one. He says, my name is no one. This is
Right.
somebody who has mastered privacy and walks the talk, you know? Uh, so yeah, that aspect that you picked up on, that this is now on the private, and that corresponds to this master of wisdom, the strategist, known as Odysseus. Yeah, you're spot on, man. You're nailing it. So,
Cool.
so the what I've learned is that the Odyssey is the Enneagram, and his adventures are unwinding what the Iliad had laid out. So I haven't tested the Iliad. I have to say this. I haven't run the Iliad through the test of Enneagram. I'm too excited at discovering that the Odyssey is a perfect fit when you run it in reverse.
Wow.
So I'll just do a quick walkthrough
Oh, sure.
on the stations to try to convince people so they can syncopate with their mind how the stations
Wonderful.
actually fit the 9 destinations. Technically, there's 10 destinations. I mean, you could almost make 12 if you wanted to extract 12 because he makes a stop in Hades, which is a
Right.
neutral spot. And then he has 3 adventures uh, in between the 3 and the 4. So you could conflate this into other numbers, but if you know the personality types and the intricacies of this imprinting, it's a perfect fit for the 9. So Uh, the Lotus Eaters is where the adventure essentially begins in its chronological sequencing. Granted, it is told in broken order in the actual epic itself, but if you follow its chronology, they start out with the Lotus Eaters, and this has to do with the sloth, the deadly sin of sloth is the shadow of a 9 personality type who is indolent or lazy, and but their strength is they're balanced and they're a peacekeeper. Another term for them, they're also called adaptive peacemakers. So they have, while we talk about their shadow, just remember that it's only language that limits me from also complimenting them at the same time.
I
So
see.
while I'm saying slothful or indolent, there are strengths to that, and you can anticipate and play into those. So the Lotus Eaters are totally the number 9 where they start. Now, something I'm discovering, and I'll share some of these with you, is that there are linguistical puns that are still present in English language that I can't explain how the English language is holding on to artifacts from a story that's in Greek. But it's
It's a good
there.
question.
It's there a thousand ways. Yeah, yeah. It really transcends language. And that, I think that tells us how this is embedded into everybody's DNA.
Right.
If I were speaking in German, I would also find linguistical puns seeded all throughout. I think any language could accomplish this penetration that we're in, but it's at the Lotus Eaters where his crewmen are so lackadaisical from the drugs. He has to tie them up in the seat. He has to bind them. He has to actually activate his number 8 personality type to draw them out of the 9, to click them over. He has to take control. So he plays the number 8 to gain his control of his men and tie them into their seats. Well, the word lotus eater has the word lotu seater.
Yeah.
That is a struggle to sit. He has to fight them. He has to literally manhandle them
Manhandle
to
it.
get them
Yes, himself.
to sit. So there's a lotu seat in the Lotus Eaters part of the story because he struggles to get them to sit in the ship. And also, there is a ship in the Hermit card. Hermit card is number 9.
I know.
So him putting them in the ship, in the Lotus Eater's position to start the journey, to move, to progress, is so apropos. It's really rewarding. There are
Yes.
many
And
artifacts. So
let me add one to
go ahead.
that because you strap in when you're in a spacesuit, astronaut man, you got to strap in to get in that spaceship. So there it is.
Wow.
Man,
Wow.
there's too many. It's crazy. I'm so excited for
We
everyone to join
could
us for
go
this,
for,
man.
it's too many.
It's too many.
Yes, we could go for hours. I mean, we could
Oh
just
yeah.
dig in on the Lotus Eaters and do a whole episode. You know,
Right.
there's so
Right.
much here, but I want to substantiate.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
When you said strap in, there's a belt. He does have like a belt, you know,
Wow.
going right across the waistline right there.
Let me
That
look at
is
my belt
great.
too.
That is really fun.
Oof, man. Oh, baby.
So, so once he goes from the Lotus Eaters
Right.
into, he moves on to Polyphemus is the
Right.
Cyclops. And they go into the cave, which is also kind of an aspect of the hermit as well. And they start to partake of his supplies, and then he comes home, and they have to trick him into drinking himself to sleep, and then they poke him in the eye to escape. We all know the story. But what's beautiful is this is a quintessential number 8 controller, domineering, with a shadow of lust or control. Challenger is another word here. And even the fact that he's a cyclops is incredibly apropos because number 8 personality types can be very narrow sighted. They can be too singular minded. about their goals, and they don't see the peripheral. So even when he's checking his sheep, he's not checking the underside. And that's an aspect of that narrow sighted panopticon
Right.
of the number eights. And
Right.
their remedial virtue is sympathy. Uh, the Catholic Church would say chastity, but I think they're playing to the sex too much. I think that sympathy is better advice for the redemption of a number eight who's stuck in their narrow sight. Then
Interesting.
he goes to the Aeolians, which is on a floating island. Some say that's an actual island just north of Sicily. It's
Oh yeah.
possible. It's
Yeah.
said
I heard the same.
you heard the same.
I heard
Okay.
the same.
And they say that because it's volcanic, it may have shifted its location, which
Mm.
fulfills the myth that it's floating, a floating island. But this is where he gets to the bag of wind. And this is great. I got to say also, these little parts of the story, they actually hit on our friends. Like our buddy Dylan, he's a number eight. He's a Polyphemus,
Right.
and for him to like really sympathize with the drama of that aspect of the story, it's going to hit him harder than some of us.
I see.
Now we're in the number seven. We're in our buddy Chance's territory, and Chance is going to be like, "Oh yeah, these are my people." Because on that island, they're partying all the time.
Right.
They're top hopping. So Chance's top hopping genetics are baked into the Aeolian people. And Chance is going to love this because this is where he gets the bag of wind. Chance has been going about the billows lately. The
Ah.
billows have been like a symbol that's calling him.
Right.
And sure enough, in the Odyssey, it is the Aeolians who get the bag of wind, the sacred bag of the Zephyr, the
Right.
western wind.
Exactly. Yep.
And he uses this to navigate because the winds are beneficial for him so he can get home sooner. And then his crewmen come and they ruin the party. They open the bag and let it all out.
Right. They thought it was gold.
I think, yeah, right. I think there's a chance that this is actually encoding uh, dirigibles. I think there's a dirigible encode to the western wind, to the Zephyr wind. And the reason I say this, and I don't not to derail or go too far off, but I am finding that there's actual feasible uh, truisms that fulfill the myths. For example, there is a corn lily flower that if animals eat the corn lily flower when they're pregnant, if they eat too much of it, the child is born cyclopic. And so the myth of a race of people who are all cyclopses, they might have lived in a place where there was too much corn lily. And what they were eating was affecting their natal process. And so cyclopic race, totally feasible,
Right.
totally scientifically feasible. And so once you get these little nuggets of like, what? There's aspects of this that might have been true, then it
Absolutely. Yeah.
draws you in. And so the next station is the Aeolians, and my mind is like, what if they had helium balloons or hydrogen balloons or something?
Right. Right. And of course, the other question is this story really that old? Because it's hard to imagine that it is, you know? But that may be, maybe that's a second part one. That might be interesting to mention later. I want to
Hey, I love it. I
I
love that.
want to, we'll get right into the Aeolian again because there's one or two things I just want to throw out there that I had in my notes that predate this moment. So let's just throw them out and then we'll move on because I want the viewers to get the gist of, like where this episode came from. Because, much like episode 51, it was a first for me because Meta Soundworks gave me the outline. I've never done that yet. I always do the outline. And this time around, I didn't necessarily give an outline. I just presented myself with what I wanted to say. It wasn't, which is an outline, I guess, but this is a different kind of thing for me too. So this is fun for me, big time. And I just want the viewers to know that this is a unique experience. This year so far has been very different for the show. Um, he wants to get back to Ithaca, right? And I want to quickly mention that Ithaca is this, one of those holy grail colleges that people are just dying to spend their money to get to, right? Almost like a highbrow thing. They're deceived into it. It's another deception to me. College can be a huge deception. The diploma can be a deception in general. Like, oh, you know all this now. You usually don't know all this, actually. You usually have a lot more to go before you know more than the diploma allows you to say. And, look, people want the deception, much like they want to believe we are a pale blue dot in the middle of nothing, because then you just work the cubicle life and you go home and you drink and you watch sports and you just fuck everything. You don't care, So people want that, actually. So I think that's a connection to be made. Retrieving Helen in the Iliad, Helen, maybe we could get to that. I don't know. Not important to me. The Lotus Eaters, forgetting the past if eaten is the actual what happens to them, right? They forget about their own, they forget about themselves, who they are. Fake history, same idea. The idea that this is maybe not as old as they say it is. The idea that we, landed on the moon and all this other stuff. And Veritas and Vino, maybe, I don't know, maybe not. But they, like you said, that they hid under the sheep as they went underneath. Master of deception, right? And this reminds me of the wolf in sheep's clothing, but it's the humans in sheep's clothing that are the people that are trying to deceive us constantly with this moon crap, right? So I think there's a lot of things to connect in that moment. And another thing that I thought was really interesting that maybe you have something to mention here, because I don't want to backtrack too much, but I wanted to get these things out there because they were really on my mind, fresh in my mind, is that he uses a wooden stake that he crafts to stab Polyphemus in the eye, which feels very vampiric, in its nature. So I don't know if there's a connection to there, but at one point when asked, Polyphemus says, "Nobody is killing me, nobody." And this is the plight of the modern wage slave. We're like, no one's trying to ruin my life, man. Everything's great. I got a pension. This is that it just relates to so many things that are far more of a modern plight you would think than from back then. It's incredible. Just like you were saying, man, it's incredible, right? Check this out too. As they escaped from the Cyclops, the other Cyclopses were throwing boulders at them, which makes me think that their ship is passing through an asteroid field or something. You see what I mean with that relationship? It's just constantly going to be space relationship to all this, man. And another quick thing that I really did want to mention before we move on is that, strangely enough, I know Beowulf pretty well, and I think it's an interesting story for sure. And that comment from Ajax about, you believe everything Odysseus says, you're being deceived. Nobody saw that. Nobody can prove any of this. Beowulf had tons of tall tales to tell as well, swimming entire oceans and doing all this other, killing tons of humongous monsters. Odysseus is the same guy. And the other thing that I think is far more of a connection, and maybe this was intentional, is that Odysseus does accidentally reveal his name to Polyphemus after saying he's nobody. And the reason Beowulf gets tagged is because he tells Grendel his name in bullish confidence, like, "I'm Beowulf." And it's the same exact thing. You see what I mean? So I think there's a interesting potential similarity. So last but not least now, and feel free to comment on any of this, Aeolian. Aeolian in music is the minor scale that we use nowadays. Minor being the opposite shade of major, which is like the scale, major scale, right? When you're in any major scale, there is something called a relative minor. It is the same exact scale starting from a different note in the scale than 1. You start at 6 instead of 1, by the way, in case that interests you. So Aeolian has a humongous musical factor as being the deception. As a matter of fact, if you emphasize that minor when in major, it's called a deceptive cadence. So Aeolian can be very deceptive. Western winds being that Atlantic, I guess, because we're in the Mediterranean, even though it says ocean. But check this out too. The bag of wind gets canned because everyone thinks it's gold. And they behind his back, they opened the bag, right? Screwed everything up. Now they've got no propulsion, right? And when in space with this vacuum of space, there is not supposed to be a functional ability to have any propulsion. So I felt that there was a space relationship with that idea too, actually. And you know, he gets sent back to the start as a result of where he left with the bag of wind, which makes me think of the final comment I want to use before you get to keep going, because you're kicking ass, dude. He gets sent right back to the place he came just because he loses his propulsion because he never had it, maybe. And that reminds me of how publicly we see the liftoff of the rocket ships always. Privately, we get the deception and, CGI of the thing returning, but privately, it's just maybe the capsule's just getting dumped. No one's being called to see the landing. No one ever sees that. So I feel like that all made me think of everything together all at once, And there is a Challenger space flight too. You mentioned Challengers. So I thought that was pretty interesting too, man.
Totally,
So
yes.
there's my two
So,
cents on the past 5 minutes of whatever.
all right, yes. So the number 7 is the Aeolians,
Mhm.
and also Socrates is in the symposium. That's his position as well. He is a quintessential enthusiast with the shadow of glutton, and their remedial virtue is abstinence total. Not just take a little bit, take none whatsoever. That is the remedial virtue of the number 7. It's very difficult remedial virtue. I feel for the
Mm.
sevens.
Extreme
Um,
abstinence, actual abstinence.
yes. So this is related in that aspect of, oh, he thought he got so far. Look how good. Oh, he can almost see home. And then he goes back to where none at all. None at all. And he has to go and ask them, hey, can I have another one of those? And they abstain from giving it to him. They say, no, sorry, bro. You're shit out of luck. Sometimes I'm going to parallel this to chance in my life. Chance has helped me out with technological uh, contraptions and gizmos and trying to problem solve some of my own little advancements in this technological age.
Right.
So he sent me this little antenna that's helping me communicate right now.
Nice.
It took me over a week to get that thing to work. And I kept coming back to him, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, here, I don't know, I don't know what to." And eventually, I kept thinking he's going to be like the Aeolians, and he's going to say, "Sorry, bro, Neptune
You're
isn't down
lucky.
with you.
Right.
If Neptune can't help you, then what can I do?" So these number sevens, they totally have that aspect of like, "Oh, you thought you got a lot done? Well, Socrates knows one thing, that he knows nothing at all." And you're back where you started. And that's what Plato's Republic does to you. It takes you
Yeah.
on this long adventure, and then you come back where you started, and you're like, what just happened?
Well, yeah.
Uh,
Where did we go? It
that's
just keeps
fun.
going.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just keeps going, man.
And and then you mentioned the stick in the eye of Polyphemus
Yeah.
and not identifying who you are. There is a great deal to that. Let's think about the who. Who has
Who?
stabbed you in the eye? Oh,
Uh-huh.
it was nobody. Nobody did it. Oh, well, sorry, but we can't help you then. The wording of Polyphemus's cries, his pleas for help, is actually revealing knowledge of the encyclopedists, the inner circle of knowing. They are hailing themselves in the story
Right.
because his friends ask, "Did you were you violated by cunning and deceit, or by physical criminal violence?" These are the two types of legal battles you can get into in the world. There's
Mm.
civil and there's criminal.
Right.
They actually ask him in his agony and his pain, they're like, is it a civil crime or is it a criminal crime? Or is
Wow.
it a civil violation or a criminal crime? And he's like, no, I don't, nobody did anything. They're
Nobody.
like, you have no standing in this court.
Right.
And so the legality of what the WHO just did and the fact that they don't answer to anybody, they're in international waters, it's a fugazi, and they named themselves nobody, right?
Right.
Very profound, man. I'm glad you
Wow.
picked that up. I'm glad we didn't miss that detail.
Yeah, that was cool.
That stick in the eye is right here. It is it's a division. It's not an actual station. It's the dividing line between the 7 and the 8. And it's going to be this adjustment card.
Right.
And so this substantiates even more the fact that they're asking him legal questions. Is it a civil or is it criminal? And there's literally a sword getting stuck into the ground right here.
Hmm.
Uh, and this card also, I mean, this is not to derail too much, but I've found like, uh, nah, I don't want to say it. It's too weird. But this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Ah.
This is so weird, but like he changed the name of the card to adjust TMENT,
Oh.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right, because it's supposed to be strength.
Uh, uh, no, it would have been Justice in the
Oh,
original
justice.
deck.
I'm sorry. Right, right. I was
But
thinking
you're right because
COS.
the numbers were switched with the strength card, so
That's
you're
what I was
not
thinking.
wrong.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, you're
Okay.
not wrong. Totally. So, but yeah, the heroes on a half shell and the Ninja Turtles
Wow.
aspect of this, there's a lot more. But I just thought I would mention that
That's cool, man. That's cool.
because the Ninja Turtles require anonymity.
Right.
Who are the Ninja Turtles? They're no one. They're nobody. They're
Yeah,
the
they're
Who.
in and out, in and out. No one sees them. Batman style, you know.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, good call on Polyphemus and the Who and the anonymity of this. Uh, and one thing about this division line between it's between the thinking groups and the doing groups.
Hmm.
I call this discernment. This is the line of discerning. And in Greek, they call justice dikaiosune. And I find it fascinating how similar discernment and dikaiosune serve
Right.
in our mental capacities. So yeah, that discernment line is very pivotal
Yeah.
in mythology and in the human experience. So the next, after the Aeolians, after the ship gets deflated, or the bag of wind gets deflated,
Right.
I'll mention there once upon a time was a constellation that is basically the hot air balloon constellation.
Hmm.
I forget its name. It's like
Wow.
Aristocraticus or something. It's a hot air balloon constellation, and it's only in some old star maps. Not everybody has
Right.
that constellation, but it's right next to the microscopium.
Huh.
And that constellation is an augury reader, and it has much to do with the military industrial complex, the MIC. The abbreviation for microscopium is MIC.
Hmm.
And so I call this the Mickey Mouse Club, the
Right.
MIC. They want you to think that they can see you every little detail of what you're doing. That's
Right.
just seeding the mind with
Wow.
shenanigans.
Yeah. Is it in Urania's mirror by any chance? Is it there?
I, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I
I
always
think
feel
it
like
might
there's
be.
something hiding in there
I do
compared to
too.
what we've got now. You know what I mean?
I do too. I think that's one I would love to have a physical copy of someday.
Oh yeah. Me too. Me too, man.
So so from there they move on to the Lestragonians is the number 6 station, and this station is it's highly contentious. Uh, it's a loyalist with a shadow of fear, with a remedial virtue of courage or bravery or valor. I
Hmm.
love the word valor.
Right.
Um, so when you hear these words, there are a great many other synonyms that should draw your mind psychically to the loyalists. And one thing about the Odyssey in the Lestragonians is that in that location they never get the light of day. They have a false light all the time. And Odysseus he gets a hunch that maybe he should park in the back of all the ships when they come into this harbor. Maybe I should stay a little close to the exit. This is a good capoeirista, never turns their back on the entrance to the bar, right?
Right.
Never turn your back on the entrance to the bar. And if you have to sit with your back to the bar, then keep on your toes twice as much.
Ah.
Uh, so what's amazing about the fact that there's no light in that harbor is this is what I call you never see it.
Hmm.
University
Right.
is you never see it. They never see it. And
Right.
what you never see in universe IT is you never see astronomy. You never learn about the fourth pillar of the quadrivium. And as long as they can keep you detached from astronomy and the fourth pillar of the quadrivium, then you're perfectly qualified to come to university and be a loyalist and come get your degree from Loyalist.
Oh,
Ignatius Loyola and the loyalists are all embedded in the Lystrogonian camp.
wow.
And the truth of those words is still revealing itself to me in a fascinating way. Um, so yeah, the university of the university in the loyalist seat has a great deal of fear response because they very simply respond with uh, uh, instant agitation and resistance,
Right.
uh, and and that's where they throw the rocks and kill a great deal of his men. I think only his ship escapes, or maybe yeah, I think only his ship escapes,
I
and then
think
he
so
goes
too.
to yeah, then he moves on to Circe in
Cersei.
the number five. And on his way to find Circe, he encounters Hermes. And this is really fun because Hermes is the number five personality type in the
Mm.
Greek pantheon.
Wow.
So Hermes was sitting here all along before I even put the Odyssey on the map, you know.
Right. Wow.
Um,
And university is universe too. They convince you of the universe. You don't need the fourth pillar. And when I
right,
just had Meta Soundworks on, we were working on how the fourth thing is what's missing, and that's where the secret is. You need the first three, you get the fourth. So interesting that how these things just keep piling on.
totally. And you know, a lot of people will tell you, "Oh yes, the word Catholic means universal."
Hmm.
And then they will also say, "Oh yeah, university. It's like a city, a universal city."
Right. Right.
But they never put the fact that university basically means Catholic.
Hmm. Wow. I didn't know
And
that.
that's pretty
That's cool.
profound to me that university is hiding the word Catholic in it.
And then the
That's
nickname
kind
is
of crazy.
Varsity. There's your Valor Varsity. Wow. Very interesting. So
Wow.
what do you know about the Molly
Yes.
here? The Molly
Yes.
suggestion for Cersei. Yeah, right. What do you know about the Molly suggestion for Cersei? You know, the MDMA of it all.
uh, well, definitely, Hermes is the medicinal uh,
Right.
uh, psychopomp
Medicinal
of
messenger.
sorts. It
Right, right.
is, yeah, yeah. And I love that he gives him an antidote that you take in advance.
Hmm.
It's foresight. It's showing
Right.
foresight, which is also an aspect of the number five, is seeing ahead. Uh, uh, what's his name? Prometheus.
Right.
Prometheus's name means foresight. So he gets that preventative medicine. Uh, it's a prophylactic. He gets a prophylactic medicine that he can use in advance from the assailing of the poison that Cersei's going to try to use her spells on him.
Right.
And I think that's really just neat that the foresight aspect of the number five is here. And then Cersei's her abode is in the center of the island, so she's self-centered,
Hmm.
which is an aspect of the observer with
Mm.
a shadow of greed or jealousy, and a remedial virtue of sobriety is what
Right.
fixes the self-centeredness, uh, closed off jealousy of. I guess yeah. It's so hard to put the perfect word to it, but it's cool because Hermes gives him an herb that will keep him in sobriety.
Right.
And he takes this herb and he accomplishes sobriety even when her spells come on to him. And so that fixes the situation of the number five. And so uh the number five, Cersei, one more thing is this is the origin of the word church.
Right.
Dylan has
Kirke.
brought this forward in a really, yeah, Kirke, you got it. You got it, the Kirke. And she's even playing a mandolin, but it might have been a kathira, the harp that is
Yeah.
named the kathira, which is also the bedrock origin word of the word uh, Catholic. The Catholic
Catheter.
Church
Right.
also has a relationship to this kathira.
That's a better
Um,
guess because there's an Aeolian harp as well. What that one that is played by the wind. If you just leave it out, it's a wind chime with strings. You know, so
oh,
there's probably a
ooh,
connection there.
nice. That's awesome. Yes, a lot of wind aspects to the thinking groups here, with the 5, 6, and the 7 is very wind oriented all around throughout. So Cersei gives him directions on what he's going to have to go up against, and it's only getting worse. He thought it was bad so far. It and this again, Cersei, like Hermes, is foresight. He's getting information on the future now,
Mm,
um, which is just all very true to the number five. And so then he has to go through Hades and do a ceremony, see all the shadows, talk to some of the fallen ones from the Iliad. He makes a sacred offering and he meets Tiresias, who Tiresias is very much correspondent to Tent Squatawa
mm,
uh, in the most fascinating ways. Um, but I just wanted to bring this card forward because this is the universe card.
right.
And so, and this character in this card in the constellations, this is the Indus constellation, which is generally depicted as a Native American with a feathered headdress of various assortments.
Right.
And he's down there surrounded by birds because he has animal magnetism. He can read the auguries and tell the future. Uh, so, in the extreme south is where Indus is located, and he's kind of a loner because he's like he's surrounded by animals and inanimate objects like telescopes and microscopes and riding crops and fallen feathers and pins and just strange inanimate objects are near him as though he's like there's an aspect of animation being like uh, embedded into the essence of the southern constellations. And so, yeah, that's
Right.
the domain of Hades where Ulysses has to go. And that's not actually a station in the Enneagram. That's, again, a dividing line. When he walks into Hades, he's literally going between the 4 and the 5. He's going between the worlds. And I've already corresponded this to the Pythia, this 4 to the 5 gap. This is the word love and the word code both correspond to the 5 to the 4 relationship. And once he makes that offering in Hades and kind of has some closure with the past, he then has to go through quite a few trials. He goes through the sirens and also I can never say this very well, Scala and Charybdis
Mm,
is the six-headed monster and a whirlpool, a
right.
maelstrom, and he has to
Right.
navigate between the two. But I want to really harp on the sirens a little bit
Yeah. For sure. For
because
sure.
yes, because the sirens can cause people who hear their call can cause them to want to crash their ship. Right there, we have something that we should unpack. I think this is a gift to us in our conversation right now
Sure. Sure. Absolutely.
because the mission up to the moon is basically them crashing a ship. I think this drama, this cosmo drama that they're playing out on this moon stage is also rolling dice They're rolling dice with these boxes that tumble end over end and land. Which side is going to end up right side up? It's as though they're taking bets on how the drama is going to play out.
Right.
All of this is fascinating because the siren song makes men want to crash their own ship. And the rolling of dice is called knuckle bones. And the Greek word for knuckle bones sounds just like the English word for astronomy. Astronomo. Hold on, I'll try to find it.
Yeah.
The word for rolling dice or throwing knuckle bones
Right.
sounds just like the English word for astronomy. And so when people see astronomy or hear that you're talking about astronomy and they don't know what you're talking about,
Right.
they're not fluent. In their mind, they're going to think to themselves, "Oh yeah."
Sure.
They're
Sure.
going to associate it with mental masturbation.
Right. And it looks like it's astragoloi or something like that.
Thank you, thank you. Astrologo.
Wow, man.
Yes,
Right. Setting up the
it's
role. And
yes,
these are
and
women
so
women
this
doing
is
it.
the yeah, totally. So this is the part where he's tied in knots to the mast of the boat, and he's trying to not masturbate because the siren call makes you want to throw your semen,
Mhm.
to throw your semen, to just
Let
waste
it
it
out.
away.
Yeah. Lost souls. Yeah.
Right. So the metaphor of this number four aspect is so profound because in the pantheon, this is Aphrodite. She's the individual with the shadow of envy. And when people look upon her, when they gaze at Aphrodite with her one boob hanging out,
Mhm.
they're like, I'm going to
Your
go throw
sister.
all my ships away.
You know,
It's so funny. It's
I
so
want
funny.
to.
But
No,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Finish. No, no, you finish. Finish. I don't want to. I don't want to
Oh,
stop the thought.
well, okay, okay. The reason why all of this silliness is coming out of the number four is because in Plato's Symposium,
Mm.
the fourth speaker was the comedian Aristophanes, which means that his muse is Thalia. And this is so beautiful because in the fourth station of the Iliad, there's all these funny jokes are coming up, these hilarious jokes. And it almost bubbles up a frenzy inside of you to be like,
Mm.
oh my God, how am I getting these jokes? How are these jokes coming through?
Right.
Well, that's Thalia. She's got me. She's got me.
Right. Right. Trace joke, man. I wanted to relate as I've been. I wanted to keep relating to the space thing because the sirens and the idea that no man has ever heard them and lived. Right. This makes me think back to the original idea that what are these tall tales? No one's ever going to do this themselves. No one can prove or experience any of this. There's the idea of the music of the spheres, where this whirling, rotating, orbiting planets are supposed to be making a pitch, some kind of a pitch because of the nature of their speed and their size, their mass. And so that makes me think of space travel again, where he's tied up, he's strapped into the spaceship ready to go, and he's living through, he's surviving the music of the spheres, which no one would ever be able to hear because the pitch would probably be so low that no human could even take it in to begin with. And the sirens are supposed to be kind of a high pitch, I assume. So I wonder what it's. Do you know what it's officially supposed to be? I heard it was supposed to be something pretty high, like a high pitch. Is there indication
Well,
of what they're actually doing, what they're actually making, how their noise is?
I'm not sure the nature of the noise, but I do know that they're whispering two promises. There's
Mm,
two things that they're seducing man with. The first thing is, I understand your pain.
hmm
I can be the only one who understands your pain. And the other thing that they sing is, I can tell you whether you should have hope or not. I can validate your hope. And
It sounds
those
like a
two
common
aspects
business tactic.
sounds very, very strategic, doesn't it? Uh, can you by chance can you pull up that most recent graphic that I sent to you today?
Yeah.
The one that has
With
the
with the
picture of
lander.
the guy with he's playing with a model of the lander.
Yep.
Uh, I found that the fact that he has a toy on the desk doing like a demonstration for everybody,
Right.
I found it so magical, so ceremonial that that they're using models of the things of children as though they are talking to us and condescending to
Right.
explain how these situations, how we should visualize and understand where the Brazilians of dollars are being thrown away. Um, yeah, that graphic it's very fun because Japan just threw some random cube shaped object on a moon stage and told us, close enough is perfect
Right.
because their lander was upside down on its head. And now here we have another lander that's laying sideways on its side. Well, that's a pair of dice. That's a pair of
Mm.
dice. And so, in a
Paradise.
broken fashion, they are telling us that, oh, just keep giving us this money and you'll have paradise. We'll
Paradise.
build a paradise up here
The hidden
on the
paradise.
moon.
This actually comes right back to that episode I just had with Meta Sours. A paradise was the if you get the fourth pillar, you get paradise. You actually learn the secrets. Yeah, that
Excellent. Excellent.
okay, I'm gonna pull it up right now so they can get the feel now.
Right on. Yes. So, one of the aspects of, okay, the throwing of knuckle bones
Hmm.
is really uh, wild to me because, for one, his knuckle bones are actually hiding out behind the ship down there. Uh, uh, and it's probably incidental. I don't know if that was intentional, but
It's
there are a great amount of knuckle bones encapsulated in his little scale model that he's trying to convey into our mind.
right.
Knuckle bones is both throwing dice and gambling, but it's also on a deeper, more esoteric level. It encodes necromancy because there were old necromantic rites where you actually sniff some sort of concoction to commune with the dead. And so it's actually it's a cocaine joke too.
Right. Snuff.
So the adult level of um, talking over our heads and treating us condescending to treating us like children and making jokes that so many people don't have the context for is very frustrating. But when you boil it all down, yeah, it actually does make a great amount of sense in kind of a twisted humor kind of way. So yeah, I put the harpies floating around him
Yeah.
while he's tied to knot, mast a boat right in front of everybody in public. Yeah,
Just
pretty
holding
interesting to
toys
me.
like they always do.
Just
They're holding,
just
kid
holding
dinosaur
toys.
books, toys, little stuffed, germs. They're always just flashing the nonsense, but it's out of control. And I also want to see maybe if I
You
get this
know,
out of here. Hold on, let me show everyone the. Oh, I forgot. I lose my audio when I do that. But I wanted to show everyone the image for a second. The background.
okay,
Right. Good.
back
We're
in.
back. We're back. Beautiful, man. Really. Uh, the ship broke in half. Maybe we can save that. That might find more. There might be more for us to find there. Is the term? Do you recall? Because I haven't genuinely looked at this deeply in a long time. I mean, I read the Iliad Odyssey a very, very, very long time ago, so I'm resetting my information to get ready for this. And is the term vast ocean used? Because I mean, this is all the Mediterranean. It's supposed to be the Mediterranean,
Right.
theoretically. Do you recall if that term is actually used? Vast ocean?
I don't remember that. I feel like it does sound familiar. I feel like it is in there. But the one term that is an immortal phrase is the wine dark sea. The wine dark sea is a phrase that people have, it's an artifact of the story that people have pondered, and it's led a great amount of people to believe that once upon a time, in the time of the telling of the story, that there was no color blue in the acknowledged by our anatomy, and that something has happened to initiate us into perceiving blue, because there is no mention of that color through the Odyssey. And that's a rabbit trail that's well worth considering, I think.
Oh, baby. Yeah, I would think so, man. I would think so. All right, let me say this now, because we hit an hour, and I actually was planning on maybe cutting off a little earlier for the first part here. Do you think we should just get right into, just kind of cut it off for 10 minutes and go to part 2? What do you think? Where are you at information wise? You got a bunch left or what?
Let's do this. Well, just to bring everybody to a quick, brief conclusion, I'll just list off the last couple stations of the Enneagram, and then we'll call it. And we'll pick back up in hour 2 with, we'll come back to the number 3, to the Charybdis, in hour 2,
talk about,
and go with more detail.
Good. Yeah, no, that sounds great, dude. And I want to, maybe we can talk about Ulysses S. Grant for a moment, because that name always sounded so strange to me. And then I had forgotten that he was Odysseus, the same name as Odysseus. We got stuff. What number is Odysseus what number is he? Is he a number?
That's a good question. I think he's got to be a 9, because he has.
Save that for part 2.
Okay.
It totally checks out, man. For everyone to wait and see if they want to watch part 2 or not. That checks out. Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, spit it out, and we'll kind of wrap that up and give people a chance to really be hungry for part 2.
All right. So, so after he survives the siren song, he has to go through Scylla and Charybdis, which is a maelstrom and a 6-headed hydra, and he's compelled to sacrifice 6 of his men. Inevitably, there's nothing he can do about it. So he has to go through a necessary evil here. And he's actually told by Athena, by Circe. Circe tells him, get over yourself. Get over yourself. If you want to get home, you got to get over yourself. And that actually comes up between the 3 and the 4 in other stories. There's this weird hiccup right here. That comes up in the Symposium, it comes up in the Tarot, it comes up in the Zodiac. There's this weird flim-flam with the 3 to the 4. But him getting over himself and sacrificing some of his men is part of the dynamic of this shift into the number 3. Now, the number 3 deity in the Greek pantheon is Neptune, but it's also got Dionysus in here. There's some getting drunk and forgetting yourself,
right?
Not having your feet under you necessarily, this self-deceit. But Dionysus aside, he is in the domain of Neptune, this number 3 Neptune, and Neptune has beef with Odysseus because Polyphemus is the child of Neptune,
right?
And put a curse on him
in the eye, yeah.
So
and he told him his name. That's just so people get the clear image. Like he told him his name was nobody, fooled him. Then he told him his name at the end, and that's why the curse was.
Yes. And now this is important. Oh, this is so important. This is so important. I'm glad we're giving this to the first hour.
Yeah, me too.
Because if you guys can watch, I'm going to stand up so you can see. This is anatomically impeccable that Polyphemus's curse is directly in line with Neptune, the number 3 station, because here is where the curse happens, where Polyphemus says, if you can't destroy him, at least make him miserable on the way home. He
Yeah.
actually asks for a two-part curse. If you can't kill him, then at least make it hard for him to get home. And so that is actually targeting, it's aiming the 783 grouping. It's literally targeting this part of his journey.
Oh, yeah.
And so the anatomical map of the Enneagram is substantiated profoundly by Polyphemus's curse being the 7-8 to the 3 grouping trine.
Wow.
And so him directing malintention over here in this part of the adventure, it's all coming true. It's totally coming true.
Wow.
And so it really excites me to know that the monomyth is right here on my dry erase board. And more I test it out, the more I get positive results
Just
that,
keeps happening.
like, I should be, yeah, it just keeps happening. I shouldn't have any eyebrows or facial hair. I should just be
No,
blown away
just
all the time.
bang. Yeah.
My beard should look like this
And
all day.
speaking of explosions and sacrificing a certain amount of people, we had mentioned the Challenger space flight from 1986, which sacrificed a certain number of people as a final way of like, hey, we're not going to be doing space flight for a while now. Let's just make sure you're all afraid for us to do it anymore. There were 7 people that died on board. It wasn't 6. I was hoping for 6, not hoping, but I thought it might be 6 because of
Dude,
the Hydra. But it was 7
dude.
crew members. Similar sacrifice though.
But hold on.
Mm,
They escaped. They escaped under the belly of the white cloud. The white
right.
cloud of the hang time of the
Which is the
Challenger mission
image. Oh,
was floating up there forever and ever, and we didn't check under the belly of these sheep as the sheep were
right.
escaping from the cave of your mind. And years later, we find out that those 7 people escaped. They were hanging out in the underbelly.
Oh, okay. So let's flash this picture now real quick because this looks like sheep's wool to me. Hold on now. Could it be? No. Isn't it? It's not possible. No. No, there's no way there's even any
Isn't that
similarities, right? Look at this. This looks like sheep's
isn't
wool
that
to me.
something?
This is the Challenger
This is the
explosion.
sheep of the Challenger, the number 8 Polyphemus. It comes back up later when they hit us with Paddock. What's his name? Stephen Paddock.
Hmm.
This is Stephen Hawking is the number 7.
Huh.
Stephen Paddock was totally hitting us up again with more of the Challenger ritualizing the Challenger thing. And all those people running away from Stephen Paddock were like sheep being ushered out of the cave. That is so profound.
Wow.
The significance of the symbolic correspondences over time.
No, it's a lot. And you know what's funny that I'm just looking at it for kicks, but I remembered a few things about it. But the O ring is what failed. Meanwhile, having tight pressure, it seems impossible to begin with. And Kierke, Circe, oh, yeah, I can see it all right there.
Oh, nice.
Okay, well, all right. So before we get nuts now, you have anything else you want to add to the first one here, the first hour?
Well, I would put this in the Challenger. Their shadow is lust. And so that rings with O, if you ask me.
Oh my God. Oh,
The Challenger shadow is lust. So that rings with O for sure. And then I'll just close off real quick. So,
oh yeah, no, it's anything is fine, really.
So the next place that they end up going is Apollo's island with the sacred cows called Thrinacia, Trinacia,
Right.
at the end of there, but it's got the
CIA, right.
Yeah, right. But it has the thri for the number 3. This has the trident of Neptune, and it is in the dominion of Apollo because Apollo, the 6 to the 3, are like masculine, feminine. There's a spark gap between the 6 and the 3. So the Apollo aspect is still here when they're on the island of Thysanea and they steal the cows. And then from there, they then escape. They have to pay a heavy toll, and he ends up on the island of Calypso, where he is given remedy. He's made whole again, and she lathers him with so many gifts it's hard to leave.
Mm.
That is a number two, is a giver with a shadow of pride,
Wow.
and a remedial virtue of magnanimity. That is Calypso all the way.
That's
And then
crazy.
and she gives too much, and Mercury has to come and be like, yo, Calypso, chill out, you got to let this guy go.
Right.
And so she lets him go, and then from there he moves on to Phaecia, which is really hard to say. Phaecia has the
Right.
word Asia, Phaeaeacia.
Oh,
Phaecia is this island with high propriety, and everybody acts very prim and proper, and they have a lot of like um, acting exactly to code and standard. And if you fuck up just a little bit, the punishment is extreme. And
mm.
that is so true to a number one personality type. They
Sounds like a
hold on to
university
resentment. They
environment too.
Yes, yes, that's so true. Yep, a high cost. So yeah, this number one is a perfectionist reformer with a shadow of wrathfulness. And so all of those things come up in his adventure in this number one. And then I just wanted to relay that Ithaca, his final destination, is actually not on the map.
Mm.
His final destination is the center,
Oh.
is the is becoming whole again. He's coming back to the middle. And so that's what I
Oh.
wanted to convey to everybody in the first hour, is that Ithaca isn't actually on any of the numbers. Ithaca is knowing the whole story when it comes to completion. And his son's name is Telemachus.
Right.
And this is telling us that Telemachus is going to tell the story of the telemetry data
Ah.
of the adventure forever and ever until it is baked into our DNA.
Right.
This story, this myth, these patterns become something of a father in and of their own right, something of a safe haven, a protector, a resonance of truth that I enjoy greatly. I enjoy very much. And so, yeah, Ithaca is dead center of the Enneagram. And finding all of this out, I want to give thanks to that guy, Michael Goldberg, who corresponded the Enneagram to the Odyssey.
Right.
And because of his work, I can further substantiate my outlandish claims that the Enneagram is the Millenniagram Thilja.
Oh my
This
God.
is the Millenniagram Falcon in my read, because the Millennium Falcon also had sacred telemetry
Right.
data. That
Right.
only with this telemetry data can you get to the deepest mysteries to find the Dagobah system and where Luke Skywalker was hiding.
Right. Right.
So the telemetry data of Telemachus is all right here on my dry erase board.
So they didn't destroy the data, and they do have the tapes, that the machines that can play the tapes back again. They did not destroy the telemetry data. And Asia Minor factors into the region essentially of the story too. So you mentioned Asia, maybe Asia Minor could be just trying to connect as much as possible.
Yes, totally. Even Dylan is made this connection that the word uh, ocean
Mhm.
and the word Asia
Right.
are related, as though to say, if you want to get to Asia, you better know how to navigate the ocean completely.
Right.
You better have full command over the ebbs and the flows.
Right.
Yeah, it's even
Incredible.
in the word Phoenician, right? It's like phone Asian. It sounds kind of Asian.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does. Wow. Incredible, man. And I and we're skimping over some stuff too, and on purpose, just to not to save it for hour two, but just because this would be much like the Panama Canal. This could easily be 6, 7, 8 hours without really trying, and knowing what you know, man, it could be longer than that easily. But this is, what do you think? You think you got your completion of the moment? I think that
Feel very good about
completion.
this. Yeah.
So this is incredible so far. And we're just going out on a whim, I didn't like sit around mulling this over for a while. I'm just like, we got to talk about Odysseus now that Odysseus landing just happened. And thank you. Amazing, really. I mean, I can't wait to talk more in a few minutes. Let's just take a quick, 10 minute and tell everyone how they can benefit your cause and where they can find you and all that good stuff.
Thank you, buddy. Yes. Slick Dissident on YouTube is my channel name. I'm now open for donations. I generally have the Cash App and the links of my works. I'm also in with Chance Garton over on the INNERVERSE. You can catch us on Rockfin and on YouTube. And as well, I've been really pushing the Occultus Mundi lately because I want Juan to publish more of this. But yeah, over on the Juan on Juan show, I've done quite a bit of work with Juan. So I've been pushing the Occultus Mundi. There's great treasures in here, great treasures. And someday I think some of these might become collector's items, you know.
Wow.
I learned about scapulomancy.
Mm.
Reading auguries with the scapula is one of the things that Mark Steves is in here with some of the other heads, and he wrote about scapulomancy. Also, I'm on the Bush Whisperer, his show called The Round Table on Saturdays. Been getting down with him a lot. And let's see, I always forget people because I'm all over the place.
You are.
Uh, yeah, I think that's it. I probably forgot about three or four other people, but yeah, you guys can come and find me. I'm kind of everywhere.
Well, there will be links in the show notes, of course, just like the last time you were on this show. Everyone, don't miss that either. And you guys know where to find me, thirdeyedify.com. I also happen to have a book as well, World War U. I think that almost anyone, even someone who has no idea that shows like this exist, would get a lot out of it. And join my mailing list. You find me on, for part 2, you'll find me on Rockfin, find me on Patreon. That's where all the little hidden goodies are. There's plenty of perks on Patreon, but you know what? Rockfin's a great choice too. You get the whole damn channel for one fee, and either one is a good way to support my show and many others like Chance's INNERVERSE, for example. So thank you. I hope that you guys are really looking forward to part 2, because I certainly am, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much.
I love y'all.